Education STEM Symposium Public Sensitization. At this point, we are going to go right into the program, and so I am asking all to please stand as we have God's blessing on this proceeding.
Let us pray. Merciful God and our Heavenly Father, we humbly stand in your holy presence to give you thanks. We give you thanks, dear God, for the blessing of life, the blessings of opportunities to impact life positively. We give you thanks in a special way for the STEM unit within the Ministry of Education and for this grand initiative that has been put together, hoping to foster a well-rounded education of our children and the advancement of our nation. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this group of stakeholders who have gathered this morning. Those persons who we consider to be partners in the business of education. We ask, dear God, that as presentations are made, you give the presenters clarity of thought so that the message may go forth. We trust, oh God, that each and every one gathered, having heard the message, will be enlightened and be encouraged by the initiative that we are putting forward and be resolved to continue to play their part in the role of educating our nation's children. Heavenly Father, we ask you overall to bless our proceedings. May it indeed be successful and be well-meaning in your sight. Through Jesus Christ we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Liebert. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable Youthant Liebert, Minister responsible for Education, Information Technology, Library Services, Youth and Sports. Mr. Kevin Barrett, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Nevis Island Administration, and other permanent secretaries. Ms. Zanella Claxton, Principal Education Officer in the Department of Education. Ms. Londa Brown, Deputy Principal Education Officer, Department of Education, and other education officers, Director of various government departments, managers, supervisors, PTA presidents, and other stakeholders, a pleasant good morning to all. With the rapid change in market trends and the nature of desirable skills in the workforce, the Department and Ministry of Education has introduced STEM education. STEM education changes society by offering learners a new mindset and competitive skills valued in any profession. It is a privilege to open this event and welcome you to the Ministry of Education STEM Symposium. This is the first major step towards sensitizing you, our stakeholders and partners in education, on the ministry's plan for the integration of STEM education. The STEM approach to education fosters creativity and divergent thinking alongside fundamental disciplines. STEM education links these disciplines into a cohesive system. Thus, it prepares professionals who can transform society with innovation and sustainable solutions. The only way we can be ready for this change is through communication and collaboration. In this room, I recognize participants from government, the private sector, major groups involved in STEM initiatives, innovators, and business professionals. I believe that by participating in this symposium, we are in the right place at the right time. Together, let us accelerate the exchange of ideas and engage in meaningful discussions that will contribute to the implementation of STEM education on the island of Nevis. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here today with us, and again, welcome. At this point, I will call to the podium the Honorable Youth and Library Minister responsible for Education, Information Technology, Library Services, Youth and Sports to give you some few remarks.
Pleasant good morning to all. I'd like to welcome all who have come this morning to our STEM rollout. Allow me to adopt the protocol that has been established. I smiled when I came up here this morning because I haven't heard my name called on a microphone in a long time. Everybody calls me Troy. So that shows that our chairperson has known me for a long time, because normally only my teachers and really, really good friends call me by that name. Most people don't really know that name. I'm very pleased to be here this morning for this STEM rollout. It shows the direction that we are trying to go in as a ministry and department of education, living in the 21st century. It is important that we start to have what I would want to call a 21st century mindset. I think with the COVID-19 pandemic that started in 2020, that none of us expected, and the ramifications of it still here with us today, it has pushed us in this direction, probably a little bit sooner than we might have gone into this direction. But nonetheless, it's a good thing that we are on the journey with STEM. Today's world is a world that depends heavily on technology. A few weeks ago, I was making a presentation, and in the presentation, I remarked that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, if somebody thought about anything or they needed to do some research on a particular topic, they would need to probably get dressed, go to a library somewhere, find a librarian, go and find a book on the topic, open that book, and then try to do some research on that topic. In 2021, if somebody wants to figure out something, they pick up a computer, or you don't even need a computer. You pick up your cell phone, you go on Google, and you type it in. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what you need to know. You type in the statement, and immediately you get results And that's the type of world that we are living in today. And what has fueled this whole technology boom, it's STEM. Whether we know it or not, it's STEM. It has been the advancement of science, technology, engineering, and math that has fueled this whole technology boom that we have in the world today. And if we in Nevis are going to keep up with the rest of the world, then we have to develop that type of mindset. We have to develop a mindset for research and development. I think in the business world they call it R&D for short. And in order to do that, you have to have a STEM mindset. It's a mindset that allows you to work together in cohesive groups with other persons, 10, 15, 20, 100 persons working to solve one or two issues. And when you get those issues solved, the whole world benefits from what you have done. We live in a world today that's a very small world. I can pick up my phone and I can speak to somebody from almost any corner of the world. And sometimes we take it for granted. But we shouldn't take it for granted because 30, 40, 50 years ago, we couldn't do that. It would have taken weeks, in some cases months, to get a message from one side of the globe to the next. So we've come a long way because of technology. And there's quite a long way for us to go. And if we don't want to be left behind here in these islands, then we have to adopt the STEM mindset. So I'm very pleased that the department is heading in this area, and we have very capable people leading the charge. Mr. John Williams here, very capable, very much into math and science and those type of things. I myself am not too shabby. I think I have a STEM mindset myself. And so that's what we want to develop in our young people. And STEM is about bringing the science and the math to our children in a format that is palatable to them. Too often, the teaching of mathematics and science, the physics and so on, it's very abstract. And it's difficult for the children to digest. What we are looking at is to show the children what the outcome of their learning could be. And that would make them interested. And once children are interested in anything, then they'll find a way to get it done. And that is what STEM is promoting. So today I'm very happy that we are taking this small step toward, fostering a different type of mindset in our communities. I want to wish the team every success with STEM, because I know that once we are successful, that it would mean a brighter future for all of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Troy Liburd, for those strong words. And yes, we know Honorable Liburd, he has a background in engineering, so he is part of the whole idea of STEM education, and he understands the importance of it. So thank you again, Honorable Troy Liburd, for those remarks. And we move right into the symposium, because I know that is what we are here for this morning. And so the symposium this morning will be done in two segments. Part one will be a STEM presentation made by STEM committee members, and part two will be a discussion forum where you, the audience, will be able to ask your questions, voice your concerns, give recommendations for us. So without further ado, the presenters for today are Mr. John Williams and Mrs. Tamesia Lestrade. Please welcome them to the stage.
Please permit me to adopt the protocol established. A pleasant good morning to all. I am Mrs. Tamesia V.A. Lestrade, and I am the Project Development Officer at the Department of Education, NIVIS. My colleague is going to introduce himself shortly. He's opening up the screen so that you'll be able to see the projector screen with the information that we will be sharing with you this morning. My colleague will now introduce himself and also engage you in an activity. Oh, the podium mic is on, John.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is John Williams, Education Officer at the Ministry of Education. Currently, I am leading on the STEM initiative, and without further ado, we're going to get straight into the presentation we have prepared for you this morning. It's always strange on this stage with the lights. Can you hear me clearly? Much better, okay, good.
Yes.
All right, now let's get straight into it. At this time, let's do a quick check. We would like for you to get connected to the internet. We have decided to start this morning's proceedings with a little activity. So we're going to ask you to connect to the, Mr. Otley, I'm not sure if you're able to put the Wi-Fi credentials up. So we're going to look for NIA guest and NIPAC guest. Were we able to get the credentials on the screen? The login information? Or maybe I can just say it. It seems I will have to say it. I'll ask Ms. Johnson to.
Yes, good morning. Capital E, common letters DU, EDU, hashtag 2023. NIPAC guest, EDU, hashtag 2023. Make sure the E is a capital letter.
By show of hands, did we get that? Yes, if you got that, can you just show your hands quickly? All right, if there are persons having difficulty accessing or any technical challenges, we have some technicians in the room. Just raise your hand and one will come to you to give you some assistance. Okay, now the activity you will find in the pamphlets that you have, the brochures that you have for STEM. There's a section marked Activity 1. A website is there, menti.com, and there's a passcode. It's very simple, so you go to www.menti.com, and there's a passcode that you will enter. The alternative is there's also a QR code for those of us who are very advanced in technology. We can scan the code to access. And the question that we will see once we get there is, what are the top 3 competencies or qualities, or what top 3 competencies or qualities would you like to see in an ideal employee or member of your organization. What are the top 3? And I'm going to ask the technicians, please, to put the site on screen at this time. So what top 3 competencies or qualities would you like to see in an ideal employee or member of your organization? And we'll give a minute or so. You will have an opportunity to enter 3 responses. I'm still waiting for the technicians to get the site on screen for us. All right, so, wow, look at that one in the center there. So we're seeing honesty, cleanliness, communication skills, good communication skills, teamwork, patience. It's a little blurry, some of them. Efficiency. Accountability, I can make that one out. If possible, those of you on the laptop screen, if you can help us to identify some of the others, that would be good. And you can just say it out loud if that's possible. But just to mention the ones, the one that is standing out most for us on this screen is honesty. And that's incredibly here, so we really want to work towards seeing that our employees are honest and accountable. Okay, I think I'll stay here. I'm seeing communication again standing out very frequently, and I think that's the best I can do for now. Let's try. Okay, so thank you. We will review the list. Of course, this list is useful for us, and later on, my colleague will refer back to some of what was entered here, or shared here with us. At this time, I turn back over to you. I turn you back over to Ms. Lestrade.
This morning, some of us may still not be too clear as to what exactly is the STEM approach to education. However, it is our aim to ensure that when you leave here today, you leave with a great, and for some, a greater understanding of STEM. We would now play a video clip to answer this question. What is STEM?
STEM. It's one of the most talked about topics in education. But what exactly is STEM? STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But it's more than that. STEM has grown to represent a unique approach to teaching and learning, one that centers around individual students' learning styles and interests. This means STEM education has something to offer every student. Unlike traditional education experiences in which subject areas are concentrated on separately, STEM education emphasizes technology and integrates subjects in ways that connect disciplines and relate them to each other. So why is STEM getting so much attention? STEM moves beyond simple test performance and focuses on developing higher-level thinking skills by connecting classroom learning to the real world. STEM emphasizes collaboration, communication, research, problem-solving, critical thinking, and creativity, skills that students need to be successful in today's world, regardless of specific interests or career goals. STEM is a direct response to the realization that our future will be built on our capacity for innovation, invention, and creative problem solving.
From the video, we recognize that STEM is the abbreviation for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. At the beginning of this presentation, you were asked about some of the qualities that you would like potential employees seeking employment at your establishments to possess. Having viewed the video, we recognize that STEM promotes some of the very said qualities you listed: collaboration, communication, research, problem solving, critical thinking, and digital skills. Key points about STEM education. STEM is a unique approach to teaching and learning. STEM accounts for students' learning styles, interests. STEM focuses on building links between classroom learning and the real world. STEM emphasizes linking across subjects. STEM is geared towards building needed skills, such as critical thinking, communication, problem solving, research, creativity, collaboration, digital, and other literacies. What is the ministry and the department's plan for STEM integration? We have looked at STEM and see what would work in our context as it relates to where we are with our STEM integrated approach for education. And the Ministry of Education, NIVIS, has coined the following definition for our context. The definition of STEM education: STEM is an approach to teaching and learning that encourages the development of 21st century skills at the core of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And you may be wondering, what are the 21st century learning skills? And they are categorized into 3 groups: the 21st century learning skills, and it should be projected on the screen. Group 1, fundamental literacies, how students apply core skills to everyday tasks. Especially, we want to take a look at the example of ICT literacy, information, communication, technology literacy. This is critical because we know that technology is ever advancing. Group 2, competencies, how students approach complex challenges, critical thinking or problem solving, creativity, communication, collaboration, all wonderful 4 C's that we would want in our establishments. Group number 3, character qualities, how students approach their changing environment using their initiative, adaptability. We know that this possesses great, some persons have difficulty adapting to different environments. And so if we harness these 24th century skills, then our future employees will be great in our businesses. It is very important for us to know why we are doing something, as it allows for us to stay focused and achieve the goals that we set. So why STEM? 1, the direction of the enhanced curriculum hinges on a student-centered teaching approach that leads towards development of the 21st century skills. It is important for us to note that the federal government has begun making changes to our curriculum. Grades 4 to 6 are using the enhanced curriculum, and some changes have been made to the Form 1 curriculum, and STEM supports the enhanced curriculum. 2, the skills inherent in STEM subject disciplines are the drivers of critical thinking, reasoning, and developing discipline. 3, the process involved in STEM subjects are a fundamental component of every aspect of society and development. These processes include the 4 C's: critical thinking or problem solving, collaboration, communication, and creativity. 4, the integration of STEM alongside the enhanced curriculum strengthens our ability to effectively build the capacity of teachers in delivering relevant quality instruction that keeps students abreast with the ever-changing world. 5, integration of STEM allows for better support across the STEM subject disciplines, mathematics, science, TVET subjects, and the arts. Our vision for STEM. 1, to establish a sustainable quality teaching and learning based on the objectives set out in the education sector plan. 2, to improve integration between subject disciplines in our curriculum. 3, to have a teaching force equipped to adequately prepare Navision students to adopt and function well in our rapidly evolving world. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the forefront the reality that there was a gap as it relates to technology within our education system, as all levels of education struggled through the effects of COVID, having to productively use technology. 4, to foster an environment where individuals can think critically and contribute meaningfully to solving problems. 5, to allow individuals who are innovative and driven to create their own opportunities. And 6, to nurture individuals who are abreast and can leverage the power of technology. The goals for STEM: to introduce or increase STEM literacy for teachers, students, educational leaders, to support the development of 21st century skills for teachers and students, and to enhance the STEM proficiency in our community. And that's why you're here today. I thank you for your attention for the first part of the presentation, and I now leave you in the capable hands of my colleague, Mr. John Williams, who will take you into part 2 of the presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Lestrade. Good morning again. Now, several factors have been considered in developing the plan for STEM education here on NIVIS. These, of course, include a careful examination of where we are at this point and, well, where we are at all levels of education, educational leadership in the schools, etc. We recognize that a successful plan for STEM would require a very strategic approach, and because there are so many factors and so many aspects to STEM. The integration of STEM education has therefore been conceptualized in phases. In fact, there are 3 phases that is proposed for the overall plan. Today, however, we're going to focus on presenting to you phase 1 of the plan. Phase 1 focuses primarily on, or largely on, sensitization. Getting people to know what is STEM, what is it about, what are the benefits of it, and that type of thing. So we've looked at sensitization for leadership in education. That part of the project has, well, it's an ongoing part of the project, but has begun already. And so we've met with educational leaders and to discuss the advantages, the disadvantages, and the benefits, of course, for the students in the long run. We've also begun working with our schools, our principals, the teachers, and of course, in some cases, students. We are at the phase here in sensitization where we think it is necessary to spread the message even broader. Recognizing here that education does not just live in the classroom. Students come to school, but they return to you in the communities. Students come to school, but they leave us and become employees in your workplaces. Students come to school, but then they are children at home. So, you know, we recognize that we can't make decisions in education when people aren't aware of what is happening. And of course, later on, we'll talk a little bit more about the partnerships that we hope to have with you. We think it is necessary to assess where we are, and so we've looked at making an assessment of several things. One of those things is where we are with technology. We recognize everybody has a digital device these days. Children are born and the very first thing they can do is touch a screen. My son runs around the house. He feels every screen he sees, we can touch it and access the internet. And he's 3. And so, access to technology is everywhere. But what we found is accessing technology is one thing, but effective use of technology is another. And we recognize that those are areas of challenge for us in education, and I'm certain some of the spin-offs of that affect you in your organizations and your workplace. Now, an assessment for supporting technology also has resulted in us taking a look at what technology is available. So, yes, we said we have technology, but what technology do we have? And that may be the hardware, software aspect of it. And so it's a holistic assessment that we have undertaken. We're looking at assessing and improving the way that the teaching and learning process. So how are our subjects being taught? How are students being engaged in learning mathematics and science and technology and engineering and all of those different aspects? And note, we mentioned earlier, you would have seen the arts there as well. So things like music and visual arts are also being considered in the broad plan. I will also mention here to you that in this regard, we are looking here at training as well, because we recognize that many of us, who are here, went to school in a time where, at least if you were schooled here, chalk and talk was a big thing. We give a lot of notes, teachers dictate, we write notes, but we're finding here that quite often, even when students excel in examinations, they're not quite able to transfer their learning into real world and into the tasks that they're assigned. And so our approach, our plan has us, reflecting on how are we giving instruction? How are we, engaging the students in learning the different things that they are to learn based on the various curricula. Mapping of resources. Now, this is an interesting point. When we look at resources in schools, if you speak to any school at this point, any teacher, quite often they will indicate to you that resources is a challenge, especially resources to use with students. Now, we've seen things, for example, where business places or other, persons who are interested in supporting education make donations of resources to schools. The challenge on our side of it many times is that we have resources, but how do we use those resources to teach particular concepts in the curricula? And so the challenge is for us to figure out, how can we align resources that are available to us to particular things in the curriculum. And so the department is looking at a very strategic way to provide training and improvement in skill in using resources in this regard. And so mapping of resources, we think that that's really something that is important for us to do. Otherwise, sometimes the resources that are sent may sit unused for quite some time, and so it doesn't benefit the students the way it should. Professional development, well, that was hinted to in the previous point. It's necessary for us to look at increasing the skill sets for teachers. And of course, in this regard, we have been, in fact, recently, you may have, those of you who are parents and connected to your schools, you may have heard of the recent trainings we've had with teachers in performance tasks and engineering design. Those are two components that we've begun working with our teachers on to improve the way that they can assess and really evaluate how well our students are learning and understanding the concepts that are taught. As I mentioned earlier, quite often we can take a test and we pass the test. Does it mean that we understand holistically what was done? And so those are some of the things that we're really trying to think through deeply and to see how we can connect. Now, partnership building, this of course is a major aspect of the plan and one of the reasons you're here. Recognizing that much of what we do can't go the full length and breadth of the plan unless we partner with our business community, our other stakeholders outside of education. And so we've begun the process. We've had conversations, in fact, with some of you to look at how we can partner in different ways to help the process. And over time, we'll be reaching out more and more to you, the business community, the PTA associations, and all of you who are represented here to see how and in what ways we can support the different aspects of STEM. We're looking at implementing STEM/STEAM clubs. Now, this is slated to come on stream during the next school year. I will mention, though, that it is, while it is department-led, it's actually designed to be housed within the public. All right, so the club itself is stands alone, okay, and will function with, currently there is a steering committee in place comprising members from the department and members from the general public who are working to shape what that becomes. So you'll hear more about this one over time. Through this initiative, of course, this is a more direct approach for STEM itself, and as I said, you will hear more about that. And the other two things for focus in this phase are reviewing where we are, what we've seen based on the data we've collected, and the interactions we have throughout the year, and to propose improvements for the second phase of the project to come. We're also looking at contributing to the development of STEM policy in education. Of course, we recognize there are a lot of things, use of technology, issues like use of phone in schools, and all of those things are things to consider. And so we recognize that we will have to, over time, find ways to give guidance in these areas. Now, the main activities then for this school year have been the STEM sensitization, and I'll add here, and education project. This, of course, as I said, forms part of that. We're looking at improving teaching and learning support. That, again, too, we have begun. We've been able to get out more to the schools to give support in the areas of science and mathematics in the primary, and of course in the secondary to give support in the areas of TVET. So that's a very broad grouping, the technical subjects, of course ICT, mathematics, science, and so forth. So we've really been trying to see how we can, and so far we have been able to make some progress in those areas. Partnership building, as I said. And finally, I'll mention here the STEM Week. Now, STEM Week is a major activity on our calendar this year, and it will run from the 22nd of May, and I would encourage you to maybe jot those dates down somewhere, because you will hear a lot more about that in the upcoming weeks and months. So STEM Week, the 22nd to the 26th of May this year. And the main activities include, well, a soft launch in the schools. There'll be an infusion day for mathematics. We want to give some emphasis towards mathematics, getting students to understand and appreciate the importance of mathematics, and recognizing here too that mathematics is really critical in almost every aspect of daily living and life. And of course, we encourage you to help us to sell that message in any way possible. Of course, that's an area that we're working with our math teachers to see how we can improve the message of mathematics, or the whole picture that we paint of mathematics. A lot of us, when we hear math, our faces turn upside down. I know even now, being a math teacher for many years, some of my past students I remember I went in the bread shop a few months ago, and one student came to me and said, Mr. Williams, I still don't see the use and value of, he mentioned a particular topic. I'm sure you might guess what topic that is. Anybody can guess? Algebra. Somebody said, he said, Mr. Williams, I still don't get the use and the purpose of mathematics after all these years. So I too have had to reflect on my own teaching, and to take a step back and see, well, in the over 20 years I've been teaching, how many of my students really have grasped the real, concept of the mathematics that we've been teaching, and the physics in my case, and so on. There'll be a STEM challenge during the week, that week, which will engage our primary schools and secondary schools, not in the typical quiz format where it's just question and answer, but we're looking here, again, remember STEM focuses a lot on building critical thinking and collaboration, and that sort of thing. So we want to really be able to see that our students can think critically, collaborate with each other to solve problems and that type of thing. So the structure for this, again, you'll hear more about that with time, but it's a little different to a traditional quiz, and so of course we'll reach out to some of you again to help us in making these things a reality. The STEM Expo. This will be our culminating activity for the week, and all schools will be on display for this particular event. We will see schools displaying some of how STEM comes out in their lessons that have been taught at the school. There will be a competition piece for the schools surrounding alternative energy. And so we'll see some displays on that. We have and will be reaching out to several of you in the business community to partner with us here as well. And I'll mention here the reason. We feel that it's very important that we can showcase for students the importance of STEM in the real world. One of the disconnects that we have right now is really linking classroom learning to the real world, showing relevance for what you've done in the classroom to what happens in reality. Is it true that all of these things that we learn in class are necessary when I go to work? Will I need it? And how will I need it? Like I said, quite often students, echo or, share the sentiment that, well, half of what they've done or learned, well, it just, they've never used it. They go to work and they're not seeing it. And so we are really saying here that we need to be able to show our students that there's value to the concepts and things that they're learning in the classroom. We've seen a fall off in interest in some areas in school. For example, I'll mention here, I know geography is one of those areas. We have a decline in students interested in doing geography and science. Well, my subject, preferred subject area, I do love math, but physics is really my ultimate joy. I really enjoy teaching and doing physics because it allows me to integrate so many things in a real way. Sometimes too, our physics lessons are very content heavy, but we need to see the students doing more. So, the business places, accounting, for example, that's not necessarily science technology, but of course it includes a lot of mathematics. So you find here that we're finding that there are ways that most areas can connect back to STEM. Okay, so those are the main activities for STEM Week 2023. And again, we'll be reaching out to you to give more information and to ask you to partner with us. Now, we want to have you consider a few things. So let's consider here. Learning extends beyond the classroom. We mentioned that before. So students, they come to school and learn, but they ultimately leave the classrooms and become members of society. True learning requires connections to the real world. And I guess I should emphasize here, I think I should emphasize here that this is one of the things that we really are looking at reaching out to you on. Again, we've begun conversation with some of you present here and others in this regard, looking at, well, when teachers are teaching certain topics or concepts, is there a way that we can have a connection or partnership with somebody who is doing it in the real world? And so that the students can really see the transition and see the connection between what they're doing in a classroom setting and what happens every day in the workplace. Students, as I said, become employees and members of organizations. And finally, together, we shape what Nevis becomes. So it's not possible for us to do it alone. We need to have support. We need to have partnerships. We need to work together to make education, better than what it is. And we really are looking at that vision where we have a Nevis in the next 5 years, where persons aren't just on their computers playing games, watching movies, but we have persons who can really make use of the learning that they've received to solve problems, to be innovative and create their own jobs and opportunities and all of these different things. So at this point, we've presented to you a synopsis of the plan for STEM education. And so the question for me, or for you, at this time is, do you see the vision? Can you see the vision? Does the vision make sense for you? Can you see ways that we can partner together? Can you think of any ideas, any initiatives? And of course, the answers won't all come today, but over time, we're looking to see where we can, again, collaborate and really shape what education for Nevis, or the best version of education for Nevis is over time. So the question, how do you see STEM education impacting your organization over time? And we want to hear from you at this point, so I am going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to ask that by show of hands, if there's anybody willing to respond to the question on screen. So can you see the vision? And how do you see STEM education impacting your organization over time? So if we have any volunteers, if you can just put your hand up, we'll ask you to make your comment so the others of us can hear, and I'll pause. Anyone? So, well, let me ask out loud. Do we see the vision? Yes, I see a hand. Oh, the mic? Oh, sorry.
Hi, everybody. Okay, myself here. So my name is Valerie. I'm director for CARE SKN. It stands for Coral Reef Assistance, Restoration, and Education. Yes, I can see the vision for STEM. And I'm actually very glad that STEM have been formed. The way that we could impact, or STEM could impact with us, is I'm a marine biologist, and what we do, obviously, well, it's in the water, and coral restoration is important for holding our biodiversity, having our fish, they are a habitat for a fish. And then, so it's to give the opportunity with kids to be able to learn about it, to maybe become a marine biologist, why not, right? And so that is one part of it. Mm-hmm. And then I come also to the point that it's not everybody who could swim. And so we partner with NIA, which is a Nevis Aquatic and Sailing Center, who are teaching people how to swim. Also, another aspect that we will bring in is to help with teacher, that how you bring. So when teachers are doing classes, maybe that could be helpful for them to have us to come and help on certain thing in their curriculum, which is part of what we want to do in our education. It's not just making ourselves our camp and class, but also help with teacher in their own class. So again, to bring up what you just said about the reality. And at a later date, to have some aquarium, so then you do not necessarily need to come in the water, because for some person it's just too much. And so we could really reach everybody. And at this aspect, which will be a bit later, and obviously his team will be also later in their plan, so then they could really have science project that they could really do on hand, on land. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. There's a hand at the back. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just asking, as the PTA president for the Charlestown Secondary School, my first question is it possible to invite the department to do a more intimate session with the parents of the school, of the students at the school, to educate them more about what this program is all about? Oftentimes, CSS is a big school, and the parents, when it comes down to the PTA meetings, for example, we don't necessarily have everybody there, but on my part, I would make the effort to try to have as many parents present. So my first question is if it's possible to have this information, shared in a forum of that nature, and also paying attention to the parent group of persons at the school. One of the things I've observed is a lot of them their English is not their first language. So their children, yes, they speak English because they come to school and they learn in English, but oftentimes the challenge is understanding the content. And so if there could be any way that in this we can try to reach especially the Spanish-speaking community of the parent group parent group. We really need that. I find communicating with them, they're not sure what's going on because they don't understand as parents, and so they're not able to even advise their children or encourage their children because they don't have that knowledge. So those two questions.
Okay, well, I'll respond briefly to the first no, but I think we'll address some of that in the segment that's about to come. But just to say, yes, there's value, of course, in us sharing, and we did mention that this is the first major step in sensitizing. We thought it necessary to bring the information public, to let you know what we're doing in education. So, instead of us having to guess and wonder, we thought it is important that the population is aware of what's happening and what plans we are looking at for improving education on island. So again, yes, there's value in the suggestion made, And these are some of the things that we are thinking about doing, meeting with subgroups and smaller groups to give the supports where needed. I'll mention here, I know coming out of COVID, some of the PTAs, some subgroups from PTAs and so forth would have reached out because, for example, we went into a space where persons were thrust into technology, online and online learning, and parents were at home with their children and struggling. I will mention here that this issue of technology is a very ticklish one. There's a misunderstanding for some persons where we see everybody with technology, and I would have alluded to it at some point, and take that to mean that people are tech savvy. Again, the reality for us is, I have been involved in training across the island, across the Federation, in fact, and one of the things we've recognized is right now the discrepancy in skill sets is so different, and it's not by age. When I went into some of the training, I thought, well, the older persons were the ones who would struggle. We do have a case where many times some of our young people are struggling, and not just struggling, but there's a mindset, a block towards the productive use of technology, let me put it that way. So you'll find there are persons who struggle with checking even an email, and that's a reality for us in our schools. Persons, if it's not set up where they can click a button and it opens, sending persons to a browser to put in a web address, and I assume most of us are capable of doing that here. But those are some of the challenges that we have even in our classrooms with some of our teachers. So, of course, for parents, to get back to it, for parents, that support is needed as well because students come home and parents aren't able to give the support that's needed. So those are areas that we are looking at addressing. You mentioned the language barriers. Of course, within education, not necessarily under STEM, there are efforts currently being made to address some of those challenges and so forth. But like I said, we'll speak a little bit more to some of that in the upcoming conversation. A hand was up. I think I saw a hand. Okay,
Good.
The mic is there, yes.
Good day. My name is Jasmine Brown. I am the owner-operator of New Focus, a counseling center. And in looking at your highlights, I want to say that the STEM program is beneficial because some of the areas that you highlighted, like collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, communication skills, are all essential for emotional well-being. And we have a lot of children right now, they're so me-centered, and so, how you say, independent in their thinking, don't really collaborate well, don't communicate well, having to do it and intentionally taught how to think about others, be empathic, be able to discuss situations and problem solving will be beneficial in the long run in terms of emotional and mental wellness.
Thank you so much. A hand is over on the right. Oh, one behind. And yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Al Stapleton Nevlek, Transmission and Distribution Manager. I see the STEM program impacting not just Nevlek with a great deal, but the whole island. If you are aware, we had our first awardee of the Cedric and Bristol Scholarship last year. We sent a student down to Trinidad, full scholarship in engineering, and we also want to go into the schools. Management has pledged to go into the schools, 4th form, 5th form, and to also sponsor some students into the STEM. We recognize there's a shortfall of engineers in the nation. We are not as fortunate as the bigger countries, Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica. So I see the STEM education program impacting NEVLEC as an organization and also NEVIS as a great deal.
Thank you. I will just take one more, and then we'll switch to the second segment for this morning. Where is it? Oh, okay.
Thank you. Hazel Manas David, Manager of National Caribbean Insurance, and I'll speak for the insurance industry. That I know of, Nevis doesn't have any actuaries, and we can benefit from having at least one or two on the island, so you don't have to wait from the actuaries to come in to help us with our rates. Also, we need to have persons who can design programs for the insurance industry. Here in Nevis for now as well, we have to rely on persons from overseas to design our programs and software.
Thank you again. I'll turn back over to, there'll be a lot more opportunity in a while for you to ask questions and for us to engage in conversation. Ms. Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Williams and Mrs. Lestrade, for your presentation. And I'm so pleased to see that the persons who are here, your minds are thinking about what is next for your organization. How can the Ministry of Education work in collaboration with you to promote STEM education? So at this time, we will now have the discussion to engage in fruitful conversation with you, the stakeholders. The panelists will make their presentations, following which the stakeholders and media will be allowed to ask questions. When doing so, please state your name, the name of the organization that you represent, in order to facilitate any follow-up to your questions where necessary. And so for the discussion segment, we have a very esteemed panel. The panelists are Mr. Kevin Barrett, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Information Technology, Library Services, Youth and Sports. Ms. Zanella Claxton, Principal Education Officer in the Department of Education. Ms. Londa Brown, Deputy Principal Education Officer in the Department of Education. And Mr. John Williams, STEM Officer in the Department of Education. Please welcome them to the stage. Okay, and at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Brown, who will be moderating the discussion segment.
Good morning again, everyone. So I see from the ending of our last presentation that we have ruminated over the ideas that were presented, and we have thoughts, we have questions. And so we will give you an opportunity to continue hearing those. So we'll turn over to the panel, allow them to introduce themselves and give brief thoughts on the STEM program, and then we'll be back to you for your questions, comments, and queries. And so since we just heard from Mr. Williams, I'll ask Mr. Barrett to start with the introduction and just a brief overview of his thoughts on the STEM program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Brown, and welcome to each and every one of you. As Ms. Reid would have introduced me, I am Kevin Barrett, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education. We also have in our cohort of departments, the information technology, we have library services, and we also have subsumed the Department of Sports and the Department of Youth. So our ministry is indeed growing. And growing likewise with our thrust into the 21st century student, 21st century teacher. And STEM is one of the carriers that we would be using to ensure that our students and teachers are indeed what we call the global citizen. We have amongst us bright students. We also have very bright teachers. But sometimes what we lack actually is a pathway towards making our students and teachers current in what is happening globally. And we believe that using the STEM program and the STEM approach from as young as the primary school up into the high schools and tertiary, and then eventually out into the workspace, that we would be on the right path that would make us not only a small nation, but also a nation that could compete with bigger countries, bigger nations, because we have the infrastructure that would help us to grow and to be relevant in a lot of the things that are happening around the world. So I really applaud Mr. Williams and the rest of his team for taking us into this STEM culture, if I should use that word, because I am seeing that this is a game changer for a lot of our children. We have had over the years the challenge of having students being really interested in the sciences and the technical areas and the technical subjects. And we even look at the high schools and the number of students that will take these types of subjects. So we believe that beginning our program, our STEM program, from the primary level, we could tap into that interest of our students, and then it translates into the high school into having bigger classes. It would also translate into when they leave school, they would be interested in furthering their interests, and eventually, and I'm really hoping that we'll have more science teachers. We have had the difficulty of sourcing and finding teachers who are proficient and efficient in teaching the sciences. So the STEM program, I believe, is one of the things that would help us to have that cohort of teachers, science teachers in the end. And also, we are getting to a world now that is really building a foundation on science and technology. And if we do not take part in programs such as the STEM program, we are going to be left behind, and very far behind. So I am delighted that we are at this point and heading in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Ms. Claxton, over to you.
And good morning, everyone. My hat is glad this morning. We're happy to have all of you. And thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to be with us today and to learn more about this particular initiative, the STEM Education Initiative. We listened to you, we have listened, and this initiative has been in the works for about 4 years. We know we were kind of thwarted a bit by the pandemic, but we were able to also implement some components as part of our technology integration during the pandemic. And we know, we've heard from the general community, the business community, and even parents about the importance of having some skills which we have had some challenges identifying in our students as they exit the education system and enter the world of work. And so, although we have made attempts over the years, and we will continue to through various subjects and various areas, we know that through the presentation this morning, we have learned, if we didn't know before, about the basic skills, the important skills outside of the content which come out through STEM education. And we have heard and we think about the importance of critical thinking skills. When someone comes into your establishment as an employee, or even your children at home, the general young persons with whom we interact in the community, we want them to be able to think critically, to solve issues, to solve problems, to work together. Working in any entity demands teamwork and collaboration. And so it is important, and we are happy that you are seeing the importance. And we're hoping that as you leave here today, you will continue to think about how STEM education can positively impact your establishment, your home, or community, and that you will feel free to share the information with us going forward. You can reach out to us at any time at the department, and our contact information is also on the brochure. STEM education is not something new, like Mr. Barrett said. We want to ensure that our students are prepared, and we have adopted over the past few years education for the future. And we say to teachers, we're preparing students for a future that we have no idea what it looks like. Content alone will not make it. We have to equip them with skills so that whatever comes their way, they're able to maneuver, to be able to be successful because they have the core skills. And our hope is that as we prepare our students for the future which may bring them to you, that they will have those skills. And so partnering with you is important. And everyone knows I can be long-winded, so I will end there. And I want to thank you once again for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Claxton. Mr. Williams, do you have anything to add?
Well, I've said, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I've said so much already. I think we can get straight into...
Okay. So then that means that the mic is now ours. And I'm sure as you sit and you listen, as was indicated by your conversations before we began this discussion, that you have questions, that you have comments, that you have queries. And so this is your opportunity to hear those and to have those clarified. Because as Mr. Williams asked before, even if you don't see the vision now, we need you to see the vision because you are part of the mission. And so to get us to the vision, we need your help. So if there's anything that you would like clarified, anything that is unclear, this is the perfect opportunity for you to get them clarified because our panel sit in the best positions to answer your questions. So we open up the floor to you, and just simply, as you have been doing, by raising your hands to indicate an interest in speaking, and we will bring the mic to you so that your question, comment, or query can be heard. And those of you listening online, you have an opportunity to comment and to be a part of the discussion as well. You can just enter your questions, feedback in the chat, and one of our technicians will make sure that the panel hears that question as well. So I turn over to you. Just anyone who would like to comment or any question that we would like to make. And I think we have a question at the back.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Isabel Byron, and I'm a member of I'm employed at the Ministry of Education. So all of our persons here on the panel and elsewhere are my colleagues, but I'm really speaking in an unofficial capacity as a member of the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society, and particularly what we call the Biodiversity and the Conservation and Biodiversity Committee, which is the committee which deals with environmental protection and preservation and creating awareness about the importance of the environment, the natural environment in our day-to-day life. I'm the chair of that committee. It's a small committee, but we are very enthusiastic about the movement for STEM in schools, or promoting and strengthening STEM in schools, and particularly about working with young people, what we call in the real world, what you were speaking about, the real world. As a parent and as a former teacher myself, I'm aware that I don't think we do enough with the real world in our schools in terms of field trips, in terms of clubs and things like that. I'm very pleased to hear about the STEM clubs, and I want to encourage persons, parents and the teachers to reach out to the Historical and Conservation Society, our committee, and we want to reach out to you about the projects we have that children could get involved in. We do activities that are related to children. Ms. Claxton would know some of them. We have Arbor Month, we have Earth Day activities, we have the island-wide coastal cleanup, and all of these are activities where we encourage young people, school children, parents, clubs, and so on to get involved. We have some projects. Right now, one of our main projects related to environmental protection is wetland rehabilitation. We are working on Nelson Spring and also the Fort Ashby wetlands. These are small wetlands. Nevis doesn't have large wetlands, but we're trying to save what we have left because most of the area that is wetland has been built on, dug up, turned into condominiums and airports and all sorts of things that have created a very endangered area. So we want to make Nevisians aware and appreciative, more appreciative, because I think people are appreciative. I want to say that the Nelson Spring wetland is largely being managed now by the St. Thomas Community Improvement Group, and that is very good because that's the case of our communities, independently of organizations, bigger organizations, communities are getting involved, and that is where our children can definitely get directly involved. But we welcome children to come on field trips, teachers to bring children on field trips to the wetland, particularly Fort Ashby, which is a developing project where we need hands-on help in planting, in hands-on activities, learning about our local species, learning about wetland protection, learning about the invasive species that are plaguing Nevis in so many ways. We have our committee is called Biodiversity, particularly because we want to protect and make people more aware of the biodiversity in Nevis and how fragile it is and how much it needs protection. So those two wetland rehabilitation projects are important. We also are increasingly getting involved. We have been for some years in waste management, particularly recycling and reduction of waste. And we are working now with the Taiwanese project, the bottle recycling and aluminum recycling project. Young people can also get involved in that, and I think they're working with the schools as far as I know, Ms. Claxton, right, that group, trying to get the primary schools in particular involved in bottle recycling, the bottle recycling project. We now have our own baling of plastics going on at the Nevis Solid Waste Authority at the dump, and we ourselves, all of us as Nevisians, can contribute to that and get our children involved. And children are very enthusiastic, so they'll be teaching us how to do it. So I think that's all part of the development of skills we're talking about. Valerie, who I know is a colleague of ours or a partner of ours at the NHCS, spoke about her marine project, which is very important, and that really is a very active project where children have participated in her camps and she really teaches very valuable skills that are internationally recognized in things like diving and coral protection and so on. So we encourage teachers to reach out to the NHCS. We very much need young people. The NHCS is often seen as an expatriate organization or older people, retired people, which it largely is, but we desperately need young people, we desperately need children, and maybe the STEM clubs can join up with our efforts to have more children's activities taking place in the organization. So we look forward to the development of this project, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Byron, for pointing out some of the areas that we can partner with NHCS in making sure that we get that real-life experience for our students. Thank you so much. Ms. Johnson at the back?
Yeah, good. Hi again. Just was looking at the highlight of the STEM education. Now, again, I'm here representing the PTA and the parent body. And I just wanted to know, one of the challenges I've observed is the dissemination of information. It is a major challenge, and so even if in the schools, for example, a particular group of students may be made aware of certain things, or mention is made of these projects or anything at perhaps an assembly forum, it stays in the school. It does not reach the parents and for their understanding. And so I wanted to know, for these projects, you mentioned here, for example, project promotes project-based learning, builds digital literacy, all of these types of things. For the projects that you intend to do, and for example, even hinging on what Ms. Byron mentioned, how that ties into and the program, how can I get that information so I can share it with the parents so that they are more aware? Is there a platform also in labeling of the projects? So say, for example, we're dealing with the wetlands. Is there any possible way y'all can add like STEM to it, like the word, literally just put it there, so then once people see it, they'll realize, oh, this is a part of what the STEM initiative is all about. So one platform where we can see, I can see, or the PTA executive, we can see this is what is happening, and then we can share that information to the parent body. And if there are any questions or concerns, we can always reach out to you all to get that information. But really and truly just want to know how we can be more aware of these projects that are geared towards helping our children and by extension also, advancing the community as well. That's what I'd really like to know.
Thank you. And so I'll turn over to the panel to respond to your questions.
I'll begin the response to your question. Well, as I All right, so I'll begin responding in this way. Well, firstly, some of the things highlighted in the brochure that you have, for example, you mentioned project-based learning. That really is one of the methods or strategies through which we are hoping to train teachers to engage students with, okay? So project-based learning is one of the ways that teachers will over time engage students to improve the way that they are learning the concepts that they're being taught in the classroom. In terms of providing information in a direct way to the general public, that is of course currently a work in progress. Again, we're looking at it very strategically, different types of information or different sets of information that need to be made available to different groupings. We're working on the best ways to do that. For example, recently, since the start of the year, we would have met with the math community on Nevis. And one of the things we've been working on is how can we provide information to persons who are supporting teaching of mathematics in the wider community. Because as you are aware, there are several persons across the islands who run classes in math and different areas. So we've created or have been working on a way that we can share information there. The PTA, for example, and parents, as I mentioned a little earlier, that's a critical component, and information sharing with them, educating them as well for supporting their children at home. That's also something that's very critical because you're trying to engage students, but they go home and there's no way of supporting them because nobody at home can help me. Those are things that, again, we're really trying to look at and to see the best way. So I can't say at this point that we will be doing a specific thing, but what I can say is we have begun looking at the different ways that we can get information out. And I guess by the end of this phase, the end of the year, we will have some answers that we can then share. As I indicated, this would be a first step in that direction of really driving STEM forward.
And thank you, Mr. Williams. And just to add a bit and to hone in, I know that a lot of information was presented this morning, and I want you to all understand that is the plan for year one. We actually have an extended plan. And so part of the long-term plan is to make sure that we build a central repository because, like Mrs. Johnson said, one would expect to go into one space and find as much information. But the repository can't only be focused on STEM because there are many components to the work done in education. And we have to make sure, as Mr. Williams said, that everything is done strategically. I know that we have a culture of getting things done quickly and then it falls by the wayside. That's not what we want. We want a solid foundation so that as we build, in many years to come, persons will be able to access and have that space, and that the awareness is there. The major part of this first year plan, though, is sensitization, and that is why we're here today, to ensure that people know what's going on and understand what the expectations are going to be going forward. And so you can look forward to continued conversations. And Mrs. Johnson, in the interim, we are trying to use our current spaces that we have available, because you always start off with what you have. And so using social media, or social media pages, we have YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and so we will start off there. We're trying to see how many flyers we can make sure that we disseminate and get them out to the schools for onward submission or forwarding to the parent chats, and we're trying to also do the same on our end. So that's where we'll start, but the end goal is to ensure that we have a space, a central repository, as you outlined earlier, and parents can access for any initiative, including the STEM initiative. We don't believe in standalones, and so when you do standalone things, they too fall by the wayside easily, and so everything has to be integrated, and so that is, I think, something that is important for us to remember.
Yes, I wanted to respond to something that Ms. Byron said, but to continue where Ms. Claxton left off about this year. We are really using this year as sensitization, and just to make our public and our partners aware that, yes, indeed, that the Ministry and Department of Education, our general education system is going to go very, very, very deep with STEM education. As I said earlier, one of the components that we have is to ensure that our teachers, and not only our teachers, but our students, that there is an interest in STEM education. And we believe if we could create that interest in you as well, that is going to go a long way with our students, because they are going to be encouraged not only at school, but they are going to be encouraged from you, the working community, and also in their homes. It is going to be as, well, we want it to be as natural as reading and singing. Let me put it like that. Because these are things that we find our children gravitate towards, reading and singing and the arts. But the sciences, they tend to shy away. But we believe if there is a concerted effort from the community, from the home, it is going to be better for our students to realize that, look, this is not so difficult, this is not so foreign, and that is why this year we are using it as sensitization, so that the home, our science community, our business community, you could be involved in setting the foundation, because the stronger we set this foundation, the better it is for us to build on it. And I would like to applaud Ms. Byron, your group, for offering the field trips and the beach cleanup and all the work that you do, because even in a field trip to the wetlands, there's so much science in an activity such as that, because being a teacher all my life as well, I've been on some of those field trips, and it's amazing the habitat and the plant life and the just the ecosystem that you could find in a wetland. It's amazing. And if we could get our students who at this age, especially primary school age, who are really in love with field trips, the COVID pandemic hamstrung us quite a bit in putting students on buses and taking them out on field trips. But I'm so happy that we are crawling out of COVID, and we are getting back into our field trips and things like that, so that our students could have that experience. And if they could recognize through our STEM program, just going on a field trip, how important it is, the information that they would learn at such an event, how they could put that into a project, help a science class, and just transpose that experience to an in-class event. That is going to be tremendous. So thank you for the invitation, and we would really get our schools to reach out to you for things like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have another question, Mr. Titley. Oh, you have the mic already. Go ahead.
Test. Good morning.
Morning.
Conrad Smitten, I represent the PTA for the Charlestown Primary, where I act as the president. I realize here in your highlight you speak about to build digital literacy. I noticed that every time we make mention of COVID, we seem to think that it did not bring any positive thing to us, but it did. Because what COVID did, COVID provided an opportunity for us to go digital. And every child had to acquire a device in order for remote learning from the school. But I realized that after we now out of COVID, those devices are now gathering dust, are just being used for games and stuff like that. What I would like to see, and I believe the parents of the Charlestown Primary would like to see, is that the team's account that you would have given each child, that it is used continuously in their learning process, and that homework can be placed on teams. Assignments can be placed on teams. Parents will also have access to these things. Even the STEM program, all the activities that will happen in the STEM program can be posted in the child's account on Teams. And so the device, as Mr. Williams would have pointed out when he was making his presentation, that sometimes we think that people are using devices and they're tech savvy. But they're not. But if we start to inculcate in the children now that their device is something that they must go to for something profitable, it means then if you post homework there, they will know in order for them to see the homework, they must go to the device, log into their Teams account, see the homework, because they must present it the next day. So while they're on the devices when they're at home doing nonsense, if they must use it for something. So I am welcoming the STEM program, but I believe that we can make sure that the available resources that we currently have, that COVID forced us into, we need to continue with it. And so all of the devices that are in the homes of all the parents, we in NIA or in the Federation, I believe that we need to dust them off, because each teacher should be posting daily to the Teams account that you all are paying for. Work and the projects so that the parents can be made aware. And I'm going to tell you why. There are children whose motor skills are not the best. So they don't take very good notes. They don't take very good assignments. And so as a parent who will try to help the child, there's a total disconnect. But if I can go to the Teams account and see today, a particular assignment was assigned to the child, and all of the instructions given there, I can then help and assist the child in preparation. And so I think that if we are going to really think about digitalization and the literacy, we must use the platforms that we are paying for and that are available to us to drive the children towards using the thing in a more positive way. And that's my contribution for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
so much, Mr. Smithen, and my heart is glad. I'm going to start off by saying this is the reason why I think a session like this was so important. Because everything Mr. Smithen just said, you can call an NIA education official and they will tell you that's what we've been saying. If there are any educators in the room, they will tell you that has been the discussion, the conversation, the direction that we have asked for our institutions to go in. And because we are now having this public forum, we are going to implement what we call reciprocal responsibility and accountability. You help us, we help you. And we know that when we're dealing with humans, there will be human error. And there will be times when expectations are not always carried out. We will not be able to identify everything. But hearing from you will help us to know where there are gaps, where we need to pay closer attention, and where we can improve. And so, Mr. Smithen, that is exactly what we want. The spaces are there, and I want to extend your minds a bit. The spaces are not limited to Teams account. The students have access, every student and teacher in the system has access to Microsoft Office account, which gives them access to the Microsoft Suite online. They have 1 terabyte of cloud space each. They have access to OneDrive, they have access to Microsoft Stream. So many apps. The teachers and students were taught how to create assignments. For the entire COVID period, my niece was able to upload her assignments, get her grades back on Teams. The mechanism is there. The schools have been given the training as to how to create the classroom. So how we set it up is that schools should have a physical space and a virtual space. Why? Because we're preparing students for the future. And they need to know how to access and how to navigate. Many of you, any of the entities in this room, you know that many of you use Microsoft as your platform. We don't need children coming into your businesses not having an awareness of how to navigate the entire Microsoft suite. We should be preparing them for the future, for your world, for the world. And so I'm thankful, as I said, Mr. Smithen, for that, but know that they have email addresses. Every child, every person within the system, we all have email accounts. We all have, there's so many things, so many applications that we have access to. So as we narrow in on those institutions that may need extra support, because while sometimes the mechanism is in place, sometimes there's need for extra support in different ways. Might be professional development support, might be monitoring support, might be coaching support. And as we narrow in on those institutions which need more support, we ask you to continue to help us and to help us to have that reciprocal accountability and responsibility being reflected. And technology was not a pandemic thing. That's the conversation that we're carrying forward as well. The integration of technology should not be limited to the COVID-19 pandemic, so it's closed down because it's gone.
Thank you. We have a question in the audience.
Good morning. It's not a question, it's just something that I thought about, a comment. One of the main goals of STEM, as Mr. Williams said, was to link the classroom to the real world. Well, the real world is filled with careers. So if I'm a medical technologist at the Alexandra Hospital, and if I say I'm a medical technologist, majority of the people around would not even know what a medical technologist is. And our children don't know either. So when we're linking STEM, when we're linking the classroom to the outside world, I think they need to know what is available to them on this island. So if there is any way that you can form a compilation of different careers and different things where it's child-friendly and accessible to them, that would be, I think, would be a good way to go to link how to get there. Because just being here today, we learn about coral reefs, wetlands, some insurance term that I didn't know either, right? So, actuaries. I knew it began with an A, but I didn't know what it was. So how it can be something in the form of, I'm a medical technologist. I work at the Alexandra Hospital. I do X, Y, Z. How did I get here? I did, you know, science did this, blah, 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 and we can group them, whether it can be a website or something, and you could group them under science, technology, what the next one? Engineering and math. And you have all the careers that's available on this island. Saying kids, but things that are available to them that they can work towards. Because when I was in high school, all I knew is that I wanted to look in a microscope. I knew that's what I wanted to do during the day. And I didn't know where to go, what career path would take me there, so I had to do it on my own. But if we could help these children to learn and to figure out, because half of them don't know what they want to come. So if we could guide them along with the STEM program and have access to careers that are available.
Thank you. And we also have an online audience, and we have a Dr. Katwala who is online, and he made a comment in a similar vein. And he said, applying science and mathematics are needed in the 21st century in fields like engineering, automobile, aeronautics, artificial intelligence, computer science, biotechnology. And the STEM program will be a game changer, and he wishes the program the best of luck. We have another question in the audience. Mr. Titley?
It's not really a question, it's a comment. Mr. Williams, I am glad that Mrs. Grant would have said that this morning, because in our next phase of the rollout, we have a program called STEM Bites. And what you would have suggested is an awesome idea that would be integrated in that program. So thank you for your contribution.
Wonderful. And so we are seeing the vision and working the vision. Mr. Williams?
And to add, just to add too, that's one of the, when we spoke about partnerships, those are some of the things that we really are trying to do. In fact, like I said earlier, we have met with some of you who are here, were here today, and others who aren't, to really look at that direct link that you spoke about. Because it's not just that they need to know what a medical technologist is, but can they see some of what happens at some point in time? Is there a way that we can, initiate conversation or come up with something so when they're doing a particular topic in school, and Mr. Barrett spoke to field trips, have them, we can change what a field trip looks like. It's not just us going to the agriculture farm, but have them, maybe we can arrange something where they can do some real, yeah, okay, great, right. So some teachers do, but we want to make it more deliberate across the board. But that's really good. So thank you again for that.
Thank you. And we have a question from our online platform as well. Mr. Brian Dow is saying that students who are weak in the areas of math, physics, and chemistry are really weak and have difficulties in grasping the technology subject. What are your plans to rectify that particular problem?
All right. Like math, science, and I'll start with math. Math is definitely one of the areas of concern for us. And, every time this comes up, I think back to the very first day I stepped into the office at education. Well, the first question, before I went in, people say, well, why did you leave the classroom? Why are you at education? They're taking all the good teachers out of the schools, true or false. That's a light moment. But let me, on a serious note, when I sat in, I think it was Miss Claxton who said to me at one point, well, one of the things we have to do here is we have to find a way to grow math teachers. But I actually took that very seriously. And so what we've been looking at is a plan to see how can we actually grow math teachers on the island. And so through the STEM project and the plans that we have going into the future, one of the components, I won't elaborate too much on it because it's still in the planning phase, but we are looking at, in fact, doing just that. Developing the skill set for math instruction from a very early stage, as young as primary school in some of the activities that we'll be doing. That's one of the ways that we're hoping to begin addressing that challenge. Again, we spoke to the way that math has been taught Over time, we found that math has been taught in a very content-heavy way. We teach you steps, you follow steps, but the passion is missing from it. So we're looking at how can we put the passion for mathematics back into the equation. I remember years back when I used to do the training sessions for teachers, young teachers coming in. Most of the time, especially for primary, all primary teachers have to teach mathematics. You say, how many of us love mathematics? And these are persons who will have to teach. The reality is many of them themselves don't. The hope is that over time, that love, that joy, that passion has grown within them. Because we have to pass that passion over to our students in the classroom. That love, that joy for, and I'm going to move away from mathematics, and I'm going to say that love, that joy for learning. Because what we really need to ignite in our students is the realization that learning is life. Right now, there's almost a separation between life and learning. We go to school to learn, and then there's living. But we really need to find ways to encourage our students or help them to realize that learning is constant. It's all the time. And the classroom is that place where, yes, it's formal, but it can be fun, and that fun learning in mathematics can pan out elsewhere. And so in terms of our plans, we have been taking a close look at the challenges in mathematics. We've been assessing the data a lot more closely, especially since the pandemic. As you know, we've had gaps have been introduced into the system, so there's learning loss. We're looking at strategically addressing. In fact, we're looking at camps, STEM camps, and the camps are focused. So from time to time, you'll hear that a camp will be held, and the focus of the camp may be on numeracy or computational skills, because we recognize that a particular cohort or group of students are challenged in that particular area. So again, we've begun designing some of those programs already. In fact, one should have come off in December, I'll say it, but we weren't able to there were some challenges there. But over time, as we tighten up the plans and tighten up, we're hoping that those types of initiatives will help to improve the learning for mathematics and science. And of course, like I said, the joy and enthusiasm that students have for learning it as well. And of course, the ongoing professional development for teachers, that's something that we're working on, really improving, and again, targeting the areas. Truth, several times, it's very difficult for teachers teaching mathematics to link mathematics to real world. And so that's an area that we're looking at giving support in as well. How do we link what we're teaching to something that's real? It's usually easy in areas of geometry, for example, because of the nature of that aspect of mathematics, but then in the other areas, generally, sometimes that's a problem. Oh, and the performance task, right? Ms. Clarkson, we just completed training on performance task with our teachers. Again, it's new for them, but it's a sort of new way for them in terms of how we do assessment of students to really see how they can apply the knowledge that they've gained in the classroom in the most effective way. So we're really looking at tightening up the assessment of the learning that students have as they move from one stage to another throughout the system.
Thank you very much. We have another comment from our online audience, Francil Morris. He says, STEM education must be part of any progressive education system as it develops critical thinking, collaborative learning, and problem solving. Congratulations on this excellent initiative. We have a question. No questions from the audience? We have a question.
It's just a small question.
Yes.
If, for example, maybe it's in your phase 2, well, probably, but if a student, for example, come to an organization like mine and do a science project, will that science project will be granted for what they do in school, and that have to be something separate, additional of already the load that they have at school? So I just wanted to know if team have the idea or the setup that if they do a project, for example, a science project, with another organization, that will be recognized for what they're doing at school and not being an extra work.
Thank you.
All right, so the short answer is collaboration and communication will make it possible. The students have various projects that they have to complete. As we look at the more advanced high schoolers and sixth formers, you might see IAs and SBAs coming to the fore. And as you think of geography, I'm thinking of Keir Nevis. They may have some geography topics their SBAs can focus on Keir Nevis and the work with coral reefs, and that could be the basis for their project. Even in math, the math has an SBA, and they can use some component so that it forms part of that whole real-world experience, but it also gives them the academic component, which I think would make it worthwhile for them. They can see the great value in it, and like you said, there is no real value in them doing two separate things. It will turn them off, and they would focus on what the society deems more important, and of course what the grades would deem more important. And so those collaborations and using, and we've started the conversation already, so we know that we've met with you, and we know that there is scope for great work with Keir Nevis and with many of the entities in HCS, many of the entities represented here. And we want to use those examples to give the teachers examples of how they can be used. Because although things exist, it's not every time that we can make the connection. But if we can help to make the connection, and of course that will spark the interest and spark that information sharing and knowledge, then we can see more of that. If there's anything specific anyone in here has in mind that you think can also be used to make the experience more practical, or that can probably be transferred to an IA or SBA, you might not even realize the depth of information that you have within your institution that can be tweaked a bit and be framed into a research or a research topic or an SB or IA for a grade. But if we have those information collected, and if you continue to share with us, we will definitely help teachers.
Thank you very much. Mr. William, there's a question online for you from Mr. Kenroy Warner of the St. James Primary School PTA, and he would like you to shed some light on STEM Week. What preparations would the schools have to make to participate and benefit from STEM Week?
All right, well, at this point, the schools will be, as I mentioned earlier, each school will actually be, am I clear? Each school will be assigned a booth or have a booth that they will run. At that booth, the schools will, internally, what they've been tasked to do is to identify evidence of student learning throughout the year in any area of STEM. So science, math, and of course we are encouraging them to incorporate the arts where possible, that type of thing. So they'll be displaying, for example, projects that they've done. Students will be able to speak to concepts that they've learned throughout the year, of course using their projects to demonstrate their learning and their understanding. The schools also have been challenged to organize, a competition piece. So they will be looking at an area on alternative energy, renewable energy for Nevis. Of course, a localized in a localized context for them. It can be within their school, their community, an area for improving a particular, aspect of their community using renewable energy. And so that's a competition piece that will be judged across the island. So we'll have a criteria in place that the schools will be assessed based on. So it's simply, well, and of course the STEM challenge. You said STEM week, not just the STEM Expo. Right, okay, good. So the STEM challenge, of course, the schools will be given an opportunity to practice challenges with their students. Of course, the team will be up to them to put together. Something that's really interesting about the team, though, the team selection, and something that we're proud of with this design is it lends itself to students with varying abilities. So you know, quite often you have competitions where most times your academic, your students who are academically excellent are the ones who are selected. With the model for this, quite often in STEM, you have a lot of students who have, they may not be the best academically, but they're very good with their hands. They're very good critical thinkers. They're very good problem solvers. And so you'll find that with the nature of the design of the challenge, schools will be able to identify a team of students that comprises of a mixture of abilities, those who are good academically, those who are good technically, and all the rest of it. So that's the advantage there. So in terms of preparation, there's preparing the team for the STEM challenge, and there is the preparation of the projects for the booth that the schools will run, and thirdly, the preparation of the competition piece on alternative or renewable energy.
Thank you very much. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Warner. Do we have any other question from the audience? As we wait for that, we go back online where we have a comment from and I'm going to struggle with this name, but Lakshya Sharma, and she commends the team on a great initiative. We need teachers to create magic like Mr. Williams created a learning environment in his class. So, commendation to the team for the initiative there.
Just to correct his name, it's a him and it's Laksh.
See? I'm terrible. Which leads me to another question that I have that I would raise on behalf of persons out there who may be thinking like me, who are not so STEM-minded, but more in favor of the humanities side of learning. And so the question then is the Ministry of Education trying to turn all our students into scientists and mathematicians? And if you are, or if you are not, what then is to happen to our language and literacies?
All right, very, very good question. And I will emphasize here, if you paid keen attention to the presentation, the approach that we're taking is not to build STEM schools, but to integrate STEM methodologies and strategies that strengthen the 21st century skills. And so the approach that we're taking here, in fact, like I said, building the different types of literacies. Of course, on the STEM, we were focusing heavily on communication, ICT, so digital literacy. We're thinking here about the critical thinking, the creativity, collaboration aspects of it, and the values, of course, we have to remember those as well. So the strategies that we're implementing from STEM are really cross-cutting in a way because regardless to what you do, those skills become valuable, regardless of the subject area itself or the subject discipline. I can also say, though, that the department plan is not just STEM. The department has other units or other committees that are working in areas of literacy and so on. I guess I can ask Ms. Claxton to elaborate a bit more on some of those areas, but there are plans for improvement of literacy, and in fact that is critical because even for us in STEM, we rely very heavily on their work. You'll find that, well, if students can't read and interpret and understand, that affects anything that a student will do. And so literacy, of course, I can say confidently for the department is another area of focus that a lot of work is, a lot of conversation is happening around. And I guess at some point too, some of that will be shared with you as well.
You're correct, Mr. Williams. So today our focus is on STEM, but just worthy of note, my strength area, my area of study has never been STEM. My area of strength is the humanities. And so I was an English and foreign language teacher, and so that is where my strength lies. So we have plans in various areas, and language and literacy is one of the areas of focus. And I won't spend the time this morning elaborating because that team will have the opportunity later on this year to present to you. But we are doing some a bit of overhauling coming out of COVID. We see some gaps, and even prior to that, we've seen some gaps, and we want to make sure that we address them. So have no fear, humanities are safe, and we just want to make sure that the skills, because these skills transcend any area of content, any particular subject, and so critical thinking, humanities, you need to think critically. Digital literacy, everybody needs it, and so as Mr. Williams said, cross-cutting themes and skills will be applied, and we will not allow any area or arts, any area to go untouched, and we will make sure that we work across the board to provide holistic development for our students.
And then I could add to that, and as I said earlier, our aim really is to make global citizens, and that cuts across all areas: arts, culture, sports, information technology. So that is the aim. So we don't want any one area to suffer, but what we noticed as we would have done our investigation, that we really need some effort in our STEM areas. Really need some effort there.
Thank you. That is comforting. Do we have any questions on the floor? Okay, and I don't see any additional questions on the line. Does it mean that we are all clear? So we can see the vision. We see ourselves in the vision. And we are willing to support the vision. Wonderful. The yes didn't come as fast as I would have liked, Can we see the vision? Do we support the vision? And we are willing to give our help to the vision. That is wonderful. Then I want to thank you for your participation and for your questions. And we'll turn back over to Ms. Reed in just a minute, and we'll give the panelists an opportunity to wrap up.
So from the Ministry and Department of Education, we would like to say thank you very much. We look forward to further collaboration, further talk with you and interaction, because we indeed will have to work together in order for this to be successful. Thank you very much.
And I join PS in saying thank you to all of you, and I know that this is only the first step, and we look forward to that continued conversation and collaboration, and we look forward to your input, and we look forward to you challenging us. Your job is to hold us accountable as well, and so continue to challenge us to think through things that we might not have seen naturally, and to make sure that we are making our system as relevant as possible.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again as well. I think I'm pleased that you have turned out. I really hope that the information that we shared has been of value to you. And again, we'll be reaching out. You will hear from us in the upcoming weeks, in the upcoming months. We'll be reaching out to you for different things. And we really look forward to your support and your cooperation with us as we continue the rollout of STEM on the island.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to our panel. Remember, audience, that we are at the Department of Education, and at the front of your brochure, there has our contact information, so feel free to keep in touch. I turn you back over to Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Ms. Brown, for your good job on the podium. At this time, we will call Mr. Williams again to introduce something to you, the stakeholders, even the media that is here. We talked about collaboration and communication, and so Mr. Williams will now launch our jingle that you will be being promoted through the various medias.
All right. So to assist us in spreading the message of STEM and building excitement and interest around STEM, of course, we've worked on an initiative to put together a jingle, and we have to give a commendation to our local expert, Mr. Delison Roper. he would have compiled the lyrics for us as well as the recording. So at this time, we're going to launch officially the STEM promotion jingle that you will be hearing from time to time. So I'll ask the technicians just to cue it. And so we can...
STEM, science, technology, STEM, engineering, mathematics. Everything we do in life is centered around these topics. Critical and creative thinking, effective communicating, social skills, productivity, leadership could all be found in STEM. Improving problem solving ability, developing difficult skills for the 21st century.
The Department of Education, NIVIS, is in the process of increasing STEM literacy for teachers, students, and educational leaders. The hope is to enhance STEM proficiency in our community for the 21st century. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Developing difficult skills for the 21st century.
All right, so again, we want to... The mic is on. Testing. Testing. Can you hear me? Clear? Okay, good, right. So again, we want to give a commendation to Mr. Roper for that, and you'll be hearing that jingle from time to time as we move forward, as we continue to sensitize, as we continue to build awareness around STEM. Oh, it's on screen. And also, my team is reminding me that the logo, this is also the first time that we are using our logo for STEM. So the department's logo for STEM is on screen, I'm told. And so moving forward, as you hear from us, as we promote STEM, you will see us, you will hear us, you can dance to us. And again, just thank you so much for... With us, not to, yes, thank you. You can dance with us. All right, so thanks again. And I turn you back over to our chair for today.
Okay. At this time, we will call Mrs. Lestrade to the podium to give us the vote of thanks.
I feel like dancing, don't you? Yes, in everything that we do, it is always good to give thanks. I wish to extend a heartfelt thank you to all involved in making today's STEM Symposium a reality. I wish to thank God firstly for allowing us to be here this morning and for the meaningful and productive discussion. Secondly, we say thank you to Mr. Liebert for invoking God's presence. Thirdly, thank you to Honorable Utroy Liebert for his remarks. He brought our attention on how the world we live in is all about technology. To the panelists, P.S. Barrett, PEO, Claxton, Deputy PEO, Brown, and Mr. John Williams, the chairperson for the STEM committee, we say thank you for availing your time and expertise, shedding light on the STEM approach for NIVIS. To the staff at the Department of Education, thank you for always giving your 100% on all projects. To all the stakeholders present today, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us in person or virtually. Special thanks to the media, NIVIS Television, and NEPAC for coverage and hosting the event today. If I missed anyone, it was not intentional. And this last thank you covers you. Thank you, everyone. And remember, the next time you hear STEM, S is for, T is for, E is for, and M, you are officially dismissed. Have a great day, everyone.